It was one of the biggest turnouts by the news media in the history of police headquarters. They came today in droves, expecting Police Commissioner Murphy to disclose the names of business concerns controlled by gangsters. It develops they were disappointed. The commissioner said he was not quite yet ready to do that. I asked Commissioner Murphy when he might be ready to reveal the names of the mob-controlled firms. Mayor Lindsay promised that the war on the underworld will continue to receive top priority of his administration. Milton Lewis, Channel 7, Eyewitness News at Police Headquarters.
In our city, and police department will always work within the law. They cannot break the law, but they'll use every tool that is provided by the law without question in order to make it impossible for the mob to do business in this town.
Have you set a target date when you'd like to see results?
No, target dates are very risky in this kind of thing.
Mr. Mayor, why hasn't this been done before?
Well, Police Commissioner Murphy has been a police commissioner of 4 important cities and been with the federal establishment for a long number of years. He can much more able to talk on that than I am. Traditionally, big city police departments are there because of a drug reason, and it is clear also that narcotics would not be on the street level were it not being distributed at higher levels.
The reason why we haven't done more about organized crime is that people seem not to understand the close relationship between organized crime and street crime. And certainly in dealing with street crime in his area or any other kind of crime, the uniformed patrolman will be doing something very appropriate in being aware of organized crime figures who move about in his area. Whether they are dealing with narcotics, and remember that many of them, the ones we're most interested in at the highest levels, will never touch the stuff, but they're making the deals. It's important for him to know who they meet with and what their habits are, and it will be a very important part of the department's total fight against all kinds of crime.
Including ethnic organizations and large private foundations in your investigation?
I'm sorry, would we?
Large ethnic
relationship with you.
Fine.
What will these federal agencies be doing now in this new relationship that they have not been doing in the past?
Well, for example, in this new narcotics intelligence effort, exchange of information than we've ever had before. I've made 2 trips to Washington in the past few weeks. I met with Director Gray of the FBI, and I met with Attorney General Kleindienst, and organized crime was one of the topics discussed at both of those meetings. And I am confident that we're going to have a stronger working relationship than ever before. And I came back from Washington from both of those trips very encouraged that we're putting together something that we haven't had before in the way of a concerted effort.
Traditionally, the mob has held policemen immune from direct attack. It's been part of the so-called code. Are you afraid that this strong crackdown you're announcing might alter that in some way? The police might become targets of hitmen?
We'd have a concern, certainly, about that possibility. We don't want to increase the hazards of the policeman's already hazardous job, but it is our responsibility, and I know every man in this department, every man and woman, will want to pursue this new policy vigorously.
Commissioner, are you worried at all about placing a policeman in close contact with someone who could tempt him to become a corrupt cop?
Certainly I'm sensitive to that problem, as every law enforcement agency is. But I don't think we can be negative or defeatist, and I certainly am not. We have more supervision than ever before. We have the greatest leadership in this department, excluding the commissioner, than we've ever had before. And I'm confident the police officer will have the right to defend himself from any kind of attack, irrational or deliberate. And the sergeant had that right, and it's a tragedy. And we will never deprive the police officer of his right to defend himself and to protect citizens.
Regulations governing the
only individual authorized to use force, and he's called upon to use it under the most trying conditions, and it's a difficult judgment for him to make.
New regulations, can you reassure them?
Certainly, we have been at work in planning for this new policy. It's been discussed with Borough, and I think most policemen are well aware of what a difficult and heavy responsibility they have in this area. W. Fallon, Special Agent in Charge, Customs Agency, and the Associate Regional Director of the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, Mr. Jerry N. Jensen, also an Associate Regional Director of the Bureau, and Mr. Donald Merkelbach, the Associate Regional Director of the Office of Drug Abuse Law Enforcement. In our power that is reasonable and legal to alert the citizens to this terrible problem of organized crime. And so during this week, quarters level and determined that we are going to use the entire police department. And in order to make the officers in the field most effective, they will be fed information, including photographs, information about records and associates and residences and places of business of organized crime figures. And as that information is fed back into headquarters, it will be most effective. But the whole operation will be most effective in the field where neighbors and perhaps associates and businessmen will be aware of who these people are. The people who wear $500 suits but are savages, who will resort to any violence for the enormous profits of organized crime. Perhaps we've been too timid in not having more activity where they live, where they drive their high-priced cars, where they are thought of as respectable neighbors. And we intend to do more, and I've asked for Mayor Lindsay's cooperation, and he has responded already in giving me the assistance of the Corporation Counsel, Norman Redlick, and Mr. Henry Ruth, the Director of the Mayor's Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and Commissioner Robert Ruskin of the Department of Investigations, who, with First Deputy Commissioner Smith and Deputy Commissioner McCarthy, will constitute a committee to...
James Taylor on his promotion to 3-star rank and his assumption of this newly created post of Chief of Organized Crime Control. 32 years as an officer in New York City's Police Department, with a superb record that tells the public that Commissioner Murphy means business in the war on organized crime. Chief Taylor, to those who have spent time in the streets, has been known long as a tough and able and superbly advised me that they received total and full cooperation from other law enforcement jurisdictions. I wish to express my gratitude to those other jurisdictions for their involvement and cooperation with New York City's command and vice versa. It is clear that the mob in the whole region and area, jurisdictional lines don't bother them. In fact, sometimes they help them. Probably most of the leaders of organized crime live outside of the city, do business everywhere in the region and across the country. Hence the need for total cooperation in this fight. Yesterday I spent a couple hours here being briefed on aspects of this, and although it only took the Commissioner a few seconds to tell you about the new cooperative effort on intelligence and information that has just been created, I can assure you it took quite a while to explain the myriad details of that paperwork and other work that makes the intelligence process joint, quick, has been to make it impossible for the mob to do business in this city. And the public has a right to expect that. The capability of doing just that difficult as it is and complicated as it is there now. And I congratulate and thank, in the name of all of the people of New York, Police Commissioner Murphy and his command for the assiduous and careful.
Not accidental, not a case of mistaken identity. Perhaps there may have been some involvement of those four men. Is there anything to that effect?
No information.
Nothing whatsoever?
At this point in time, we stand with the information that we have released up to now, that all of the, all indications are that this was a mistaken identity situation. The investigation continues, of course, but we stand with the information that's previously been released.
What
as of now.
progress are you making in finding the gunman and/or the fingerman?
We have nothing positive to report yet. As soon as we have any kind of break in the case, we'll make it public.
Commissioner, going into the neighborhoods, Commissioner, will that mean that you'll be picking up people who'll be, say, that you think are in organized crime or jaywalking and littering? Will you be harassing the members of organized crime, the leaders? Is that what you're announcing?
I think it's healthy for police officers to have the best information we can put in their hands about any organized crime figures in their sectors, whether they reside there, do business there, or have associates there. And to the extent that they can devote time to that problem, our patrol force will be directed to pay careful attention to any violations of law and to report any information that would be of value to us as intelligence information.
Commissioner,
abandoned the plan
can you
to
tell us
reveal
when you might
front
reveal the
organization?
names of the business involvements? Reveal the names of the
I'm
business
sorry?
Can you tell us when you might be ready to release the names of the business involvements of these various racketeers and mobsters?
As many of you know, organized crime figures have infiltrated many businesses. They move into them often surreptitiously without the knowledge of legitimate businessmen. It's not uncommon for bankruptcy to follow shortly thereafter, for price fixing, and all of the other vicious techniques that have been used by organized crime figures to exploit the public in creating monopolies and raising prices and controlling industries. We think that the citizens have a right to know more about this problem, but we are determined that we will do it only in the proper manner, and it is for this reason that a committee is now looking into the appropriate and legal way for us to accomplish our purpose.
Can you tell us what kinds of businesses those are, Commissioner? Is there any particular type of business involved, or several types?
Oh, I think reports in this state and of the federal government have identified all kinds of businesses in this city and throughout the country that organized crime figures have moved into. I will not follows the $10,000 car home within the next few nights. When up to now, the patrol officers innocently did not know that an organized crime figure resided in their sector, because he may not do business in that sector. I would hope, too, that as we feed the intelligence information out into our sectors where there are businesses and industries, that a police car following one of those $15,000 cars to a place of business might create a little curiosity on the part of some innocent people who may be unaware of who an individual is. So I think our effort is going to begin to show results soon. And concerning the revelation of specific names of companies, we want to do that in a proper way as soon as we can.
Commissioner, will you have any cooperation from the state of New Jersey in your efforts?
We do have a cooperative. Regional government is new in this area. It's been for the past 10 to 12 years that the federal government has been involved in organized crime enforcement as such. And some new federal laws, especially the Crime Control Act of 1970, has given the federal government new authority. But there's only one answer to this problem, in my opinion, and that's close working cooperation between federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies. And I'm very happy with the many compliments we've received from federal and state agencies recently about the kind of cooperation we now have working for all of us.
Are you concerned, as Mayor, today, the romanization of the mob? Are you afraid that there's too much glamorization around these people?
Oh, entirely, entirely. It's very troubling to me to have people so naively see something romantic about the organized crime figure. He is a vicious individual. He is the worst kind of criminal. He's not a criminal who has turned to crime from some deprivation or some other problem of that kind. He is a cool, calculating criminal, out to make every dollar he can in any way that he knows how, and he does not hesitate to use muscle and the gun, the handgun usually, and to kill. And it's a terrible problem. Months and months ago, I said I feared the day when innocent people might be caught in a crossfire or in a line of fire. And we believe that that's what we have seen in the city. And there's nothing romantic about the organized crime figure. He's the worst kind of criminal, in my opinion.
Commissioner Murphy, recently, you just, in your release here today, spoke about the new influence of organized crime. Mayor Lindsay spoke yesterday about detail the organized, systematic corruption of the construction industry amounting